I
and
am.
me.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know.
look, and
Maybe
it's
it's.
worked.
Oh,
Ha!
yeah.
Oh, it didn't like my
All right.
description. So it just
Welcome,
says,
everyone. Thank you.
oh, go on.
We are live, so let's go. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We are finally live 1 minute after. That's not so bad, but it does get you a little tense when you can't get your stuff going live. So today is Geekspeak, and we are discussing marketing lessons from this world's most successful brands. And I'm really excited about this. My name is Rena Little from Full Serve Web Marketing, and we've got
And I'm
Pip
Pip.
from Seymour Digital Marketing. Give a wave, Pip. And what does it mean to talk about the lessons of big brands? Why do we want to do that? Well, to be honest, I found that a little bit overwhelming for a topic the other day, and but what I see now is that, or what we've tried to do is to organize some of the tactics and pull out some of the tactics from some of our favorite campaigns that people can use in their small businesses. So you'll have some really good specific action items to think about when you're doing your own marketing. At least that's how I see it. So, Pip, have you got the video shared now? Can we go?
Yes.
Not quite. Okay,
No,
I'm just
I
never
did it.
sure. I'm never
I
sure.
did it.
I'm never sure where we are in the
You
process.
know what?
So,
It was dicey. I will tell you.
yeah,
There was multiple. Anyway,
yeah.
let's
So
talk about other
it
things.
So it's going to be a little bit interesting, more conversational on this one because Pip's list focused on brands and my list focused quite differently. So we're going to try and interweave that together to provide some cohesive tips, as I was saying. So, Pip, where do you want to start on your list? What have you
Uh
got for us today?
well, where do I want to start? I want to start and talk about how marketing and brands create. Well, it's really interesting to watch the changes going on with brands and what
Yeah,
people are doing. And we see a lot of things in the media that is, gains attention. And so, like, to look at the big brands, I think the first brand I think I want to dive into is Apple. And
great.
Apple, who tells a great story. And what is a story? It's be different, right? Not everybody is going to get an apple, and the people that are going to get an apple are of a group. Or yeah, what do you think of Apple and their marketing?
Okay, so how I think about that is that it keys into that sort of idea in sociology, for example, on tribal individualism, right? As Apple seems to nail that really well. So it makes you feel like you're different, you're unique, but you're still part of a tribe, and that tribe is separate from mainstream
Mm.
society. And interestingly enough, I was on an EDC webinar this morning that was talking about how to price your work for international markets. And what they had talked about actually keys in perfectly for Apple, whereas you're looking to find the value and to create the value because you know that your item is not going to be the cheapest. So you create that value for your clients and your client, and then you fix your price at what your clients are willing to pay, or what that intrinsic value,
Yeah,
I don't know if the word intrinsic is right, but what that perceived value actually is of your goods. That's the word I was looking
yeah,
for. So yeah, so I actually love it. I am a big Apple brand. I'm a brandy, even though I know that they're not perfect and they have corporate issues, and there are some things that I definitely don't like about the brand itself. I find myself buying over and over or leasing over and over Apple computers because it fits into an ecosystem. It's sort of like a closed ecosystem that works really well for me. I understand it all. My phone goes with my everything. You can do all the
all the things.
airdropping that you want
Well,
to
and
do.
they create an in-group out-group bias, right?
Yes, yes.
So, and which is really funny because I think Apple's lost some traction when the dude who started it like
Past?
is passed. Yes, that's a guy.
Yeah.
And I know most people hate the iPhone 17, so I think the
Oh,
phrase is don't
oh
buy it.
no.
Yeah, but
Really?
yeah, it's so not great. But I do love how you'll pay more right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For this thing, and they make you feel like it's chic, kind of clean.
No,
Oh, do only
they
Apple
have
people think that way? No, Greg. Oh, no.
definitely not. There are lots of brands that sort of key into this idea. Can we come up
Yeah,
with another one?
we can. But Greg, tell me what your favorite brand is. Like, where's your brand allegiance? Do you buy a specific bicycle? Oh, your car. Greg's got allegiance to his car,
Right.
allegiance, right? But so Greg, how do they market? Um, but so okay, what would be another brand loyalty? I think
Well,
people like Aritzia. Um,
yeah, maybe. Yeah, so, things like that. Um, um, Yeah, things like that. I think clothing can be a bit different though because you don't have a uniform necessarily. But interestingly enough, Gap had a really great campaign that they did that probably nobody actually realizes. In Vancouver, they used to film all of the Gap advertising in the 1990s when I was in costumes. And what they did was they actually created a super easy system for costume designers to come in and grab all the clothes that they need because when you're in costuming you need to get three different three different outfits, three different sizes of everything because you don't
mm,
know who's going to show up on set. You don't know what their sizes are in advance, so you have to make sure you've got something for everyone. So you're usually getting rolling racks filled with or bags. My car would be filled with bags, and then we would return most of the things because you really only had three or four actors for a commercial, for example, or whatever. And then what would happen is we'd bring it all back, and most businesses didn't see any value in that because they would have to restock, and it was a lot of time for their employees, and they really only sold a number of outfits at a time. But what they didn't factor in, which Gap really factored into, was that their clothing saturated our entire visual experience on television. So they made it so easy, so then a grape juice commercial became a Gap commercial because all the actors were dressing Gap. So even though it wasn't a Gap
mm,
commercial, there was a Gap look, and Gap has a very particular look. So then they that and so that's
that's
actually really
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So look,
it's because they own three. They own the three different brands, right? They own the Gap,
yeah,
they
yeah,
own
they do. Yeah.
Old Navy, and they own the more upper scale ish one, which I forget. But it's in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Robson. I forget. Greg, do you know? Greg doesn't know, but Greg is saying, "I love my car, but I'm not. But I'm not loyal to the VW brand." Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they did lose out a lot. Actually, we should talk about that for a minute because they lied. So
But
they
what I would
broke.
like to get,
Oh,
yeah, so what I'd like to just, yeah, let's, before we move on, let's talk about the tactics that are used. So one of the things that I wanted to mention about the Gap thing is look for the opportunities that might not be immediate. So when you're
mm,
actually you could actually do that by um, um, cross marketing options. You might be doing that by getting your stuff out into swag bags, for example, like samples and swag bags. You might get your stuff into conferences or do talks. So you're
pens.
not
Yeah.
actually making any money on that on the first part, but you might actually benefit. It will help for your branding. And these are things that are about branding. So what I've been trying to do when I'm thinking about how we're presenting today is like branding is one thing, but getting leads and getting clients is a different
Yeah.
tactic. So
Sales
big
marketing.
companies. Yes, but not only that, what I mean is that branding is like when big business puts up their stuff to see and they get their name out there. That's branding. But lead generation is actually when you go and target somebody and you try and get them in as a lead before it's a sale. Before it's a sale. So when you're a small
Yeah.
business, you're going to be more keyed into lead generation rather than branding. So how do we actually think about these tactics in the form of what does that look like if we are going to take something and put it from branding and put it into lead generation?
Well,
What does that look like?
if you looked at it like Apple, so you have to
Mm-hmm.
position yourself a certain way if you're more
Mm-hmm.
expensive. Like we all know
That's
we're
right.
more expensive than some other companies, and it's the value of the customer service. It's the
Perceived
value.
value.
Yeah, perceived
Yeah.
value, and the
And you
value of whatever you're giving, right?
Right. So you do that through storytelling. That's the thing. You mentioned it early on. I just want to highlight that. So in the Apple instance, it's all about storytelling. How are you telling that story that is remembered? How are you bringing other people into your group? So you would do that through using language that your customers actually use. So if you're, if you're hyping a brand, or trying to get sales or clients from a younger generation, you want to use different kind of slang than what you're going to use with the Gen Xers, for
Mm.
example. So that's, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So those
it
are the
is true.
tactics,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the other thing is, so if we go back to the VW story quickly, they broke one of the cardinal rules in when you market yourself, which is, you break loyalty, right? If you break loyalty and trust, you won't get people back
Trust.
like Greg,
Yeah.
right? And thank you to Jilly and Greg for answering my question. I love that you know the name of that, and that would have never hit my brain. But so the next one falls into like put customers first. So do you think that Apple puts their customer first, or Nike, or
Their support. So how I ended up an Apple customer was that I had a PC first, and the problem that I was having with my PC was that there was no support. Now I understand that Windows has definitely upped their support, so it might not be the same anymore. But this is how it worked for me. I had a computer. I had a printer. I could not get the printer to work with the computer. The computer support kept telling me it was the printer drivers. The printer support kept telling me it was the computer problem, and then a Wi-Fi problem on top of it, all the problems. So I could never get my problem resolved, which created an incredible amount of frustration for me, because I wasn't, especially at that time, I'm not a tech person. Like, I'm not a hardware tech person. So that was how I ended up with Apple. It didn't matter what my problem was, hardware, software, it didn't matter. It didn't even matter if it wasn't on their approved list of things to support. They would still support. I would go to
mm,
their little Genius bar, I'd book my appointment, I'd show them the thing, and not only would I leave with my problem solved, I generally didn't have to pay for it. And um and um and they would actually give me way more information than I ever thought I needed, which was
mm.
super helpful. So
Well,
that's how I ended up on the Apple bandwagon. Support is super important to me.
yeah, and support is super important to a lot of people, right? Like
Yeah.
getting answers. The other thing is they do storefronts, right? So the Genius Bar,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
creating, like there's one in Vancouver. They had a summer camp there for free, I think, or something to,
Yeah.
while you were
Yeah.
buying things. Greg saying companies need to have good support when their products have
Mhm.
problems. Yeah, because you'll lose them. Like, I got the reason I am an Apple user is because my dad, when we got our first computer, it was a Macintosh,
Mhm.
and so brand loyalty can go between generations. No,
So
it's not
usually
just an
there's
Apple podcast. Love
so
you, Greg. We got
usually
lots of other things.
Yeah, so usually there is some kind of tipping point that puts you into a brand, that gets you into a brand and gets you hooked. And
Yeah,
that can be a variety of different things. It could be price point, it could be perceived value, it could be their support team, it could be a whole bunch of things. So we want to actually make sure that our branding is throughout all of our systems, including support. And so we want to make sure that that sort of customer journey doesn't stop once they've purchased. It
yeah, which
continues
is
on.
it's
Yeah.
very hard to in marketing, we've all had customers that just were not a gel, right? Like, sometimes people want too much, and you don't know how to articulate it because you might be newer in business, right? And so the customer service element has to be strong but concise, that's hard to say. But yes, we should. Oh, Jilly's loving it. Yeah, Greg. So, Greg, we're going to move on from Apple, and Rena, what do you want to talk about next? Because we got transformational. We have one of your favorites. Was it personality led brands?
Yeah, so we haven't. So when we talk about how we communicate, there are a bunch of different ways of thinking about that. We all know about storytelling. Storytelling has been driven into our brains.
Mm.
Everyone talks about storytelling as their brand story. I actually had a conversation with a client a while back now. We did a site maybe a year ago, and we had it was a revamp. So she had her brand story on the front page, really forefronted, like it was the beginning of the for one of the first things that you see, basically. Sorry. And then what? But she's been in business for 25 years, so we had tried to move her off of her brand story and provide the transformational story, the story that happens when a customer goes through the buying process with that company. What happens to that person? Why what happens to their life? What makes their life better? Like, how is their life better after they've purchased from you? That's the
Hmm.
transformational story. So it's a client focused, client
Yeah.
forward transformation, so that when I go to the website and I can identify that I've got a problem, and I go to the website, I want to see how that problem is dealt with right away, and then I want to go, oh yeah, these are the people for me. So
Oh, yeah.
that is a really important piece. And we tried to move her off of her founder story, but her ego got in the way. And this is one of the issues about small business owners, especially, is that the ego sometimes gets the best of us. And no, she wanted to have that founder story, even though it's a 25-year-old story. It's a bit yawn. It wasn't that exciting, and it was more her transformation story, which wasn't as interesting as maybe some of her clients.
Mm.
So that transformation story. So there's the brand story, the founder story, and the transformation story. I always feel like leading with the transformation, then the story or the story get sort of second placement on your website if we're looking at websites, or it could go throughout your rest of your marketing materials. But there's this other thing, the personality that you were actually really asking me about. And that actually comes through with the brand voice. So it's really hard to pin down brand voices, especially the more people rely on ChatGPT. And because ChatGPT will, it'll give you marketing voice, and marketing voice is really generic and it's really boring. It sounds professional, and lots of clients like it because it sounds professional, but it's incredibly boring. What is more interesting and what sticks with people is when you can actually develop your brand personality. It might have aspects of the personality of your founder. It might have aspects of your team, but it's definitely keyed into the values, what you're offering, the values of your team, what you're offering because of those values, and how you're offering it. So the how is the piece that sometimes gets missed. We usually do the what and when, but we don't do the how. And so that how can actually provide a really good insight into what to expect. And it also allows you to get more into the personality of the brand. And I know I'm just going on here for a bit, and then I'll
You're
pause
going
once I
on a
finish
little
this.
bit.
I know,
What is going
I know,
on?
I'm sorry. So I think that what I mean by all of that is that there are a couple of different ways of creating your marketing, and sometimes I want to talk about like Dave Gerhardt and LinkedIn, and also a couple other people do it too. But he did it quite well. So what he does is he focuses on, I used to call it the reality TV show method of social media, and that kind of branding little snippets of what's happening and include behind the scenes. So it could look like events that you're throwing. It could look like orders that you're packaging up. It could look like meetings that you're having with new clients, onboarding, all that stuff. The reality TV show, because people will actually, they will celebrate with you as you go through these little bits
Hmm.
of life, and they find that most interesting. My all-time most um, um, engaged with post is one that I did when I was taking my holiday photo of Jade, my past employee, the two of us in front of a Christmas tree. We took a holiday shot, but we had to sort of figure out how we could take that shot when both of us were going to be in the shot. So I obviously used the timer, but I had set up this a wheelie chair with a yoga bolster with my phone on the top. and that photo showing that you don't need to have professional gear in order to do this stuff um, has traveled the best in all of my
Interesting.
content. People like to see these things. They like to see what's behind the curtain.
They want to,
So
yeah, yeah, it's true. That's why,
what Dave Gerhardt,
hold on, that maybe
yeah.
that's why Google likes to give you rewards when you go places and take photos and post them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case. So a more contemporary way of talking about that is more and less cringeworthy instead of the reality show is documenting. So always be documenting. That is one key, and that's one thing that even Apple does that to an extent. They talk about the big reveal of what the products. They get all that buzz going
Mm,
ahead of time, and then when they drop it, they have a big to do. Don't they have like a conference or something and announce it? Or
yeah.
am I thinking of, yeah,
No, I
so
think
all
that
those
is
big,
it when they announce new
yeah,
things for sure. Same as
yeah,
YouTube. YouTube does, I
hmm
mean, if we're going to talk about brands that have done good branding, YouTube, right? YouTube has done very good branding on I mean, it is the go-to to learn in video. Like and it's and then we can bring in like Netflix who's created
so
the
let's, so sorry, so what tactics from YouTube do you think we can bring into our marketing? Like, what are you thinking specifically about YouTube? Because I'm
well,
not really.
if you do like talk about how when they launch products
Oh, the
or
announcements, the
yeah, like
announcements,
so every
yeah,
birthday, there's a
got it,
big thing
yeah,
in like radio land where there's two ways you can grow. You can grow old with your customers, or you can always get the same age group of customers, right? And so radio stations have grappled with that over time. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I don't, damn it, I lost my thought. It was very
oh, you
important.
lost your. Well, I can carry that thought on.
Okay,
I
good.
can carry that thought on. So let me go. Okay, so what I think what Pip is going for is about distribution, and so that's another method that I think actually we could apply to small businesses that big brands do. They consider distribution first. And when doing that, they'll work backwards. So think about where you're going to distribute. Think about which platform will help
Mm,
you move your needle the fastest, and then figure
and
out
where they
what kind
are,
of
where your
messaging
customers are.
yeah, and figure out what kind of messaging needs to happen. What kind of storytelling? Is it going to be the brand story? Is it going to be the documenting? Is it going to be the
That's what
transformation
I was
story?
trying to say
Figure
about
out,
I got my thought
yeah,
back. Sorry, perimenopause.
yeah,
Okay, we're owning it. But it was the celebrating like your anniversary, celebrating
hmm
your I posted in the Facebook group the 25 years of YouTube, and they just do such a good job at reeling you in and making you wild and getting you excited and yeah.
hmm
So um, but you are right. The distribution, where you're, because now, especially nowadays, with all the upheaval in marketing that we've seen, it's an omni-channel approach. You want to be in more than one place. I mean, start with one,
right,
but
right,
and all places lead back to your website, your services. You know,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I wanted to just circle back to a really important point, Pip, that you mentioned, but we didn't really pick at all. And I'd love to like unravel that a little bit, which
I like
was
unravel versus
con
pick.
okay. Well, I don't want to
Oh,
use
they're
it
good. They're
twice
both
in one
good.
sentence. So what we did was what you mentioned, what you brought up was context. And I don't think that we really dove into that enough at all. Well, we didn't dive into it at all, actually. We just blew past. But when things are happening in the world, when things are relevant and timely, one thing that we want to do is make sure that we're actually keying ourselves into those sort of topics of conversation. That really actually really helps to take the marketing out of marketing, because now you're keyed into different language. And one thing that I wanted to bring up, which I have an excellent example for, is this. It's an oldie but a goodie, the Claude C. Hopkins brushing your teeth example. And I don't
Mm.
know if you know this, but he came up with this marketing campaign in the 1920s before people were actually
Is
brushing their
that
teeth
Brusha Brusha
daily.
Yes. Anyway, go.
No, I don't
Toothpaste is a
know. I don't
huge
know.
marketing marvel. So,
Right.
yeah.
So basically, this guy came up with this idea that he wanted to market the toothpaste, but you can't really market toothpaste if it's not part of people's lives yet.
Hmm.
So basically, he created this really interesting sort of way of thinking about it by using sort of more conversational or language of his audience, which is
Mm,
roll your tongue across your teeth and feel the film. And once he started to identify that as a problem for people, then that's when the ritual of brushing your teeth at least once a day
yeah.
became a thing. And his whole campaign, instead of focusing on what the toothpaste can do, what toothpaste is, he was like, "Oh, have you noticed
Yeah.
that when you
Did
do
you
this,
feel this?
feel
Yeah.
this?"
Yeah.
People in their space, in their context, and hit them with language that makes sense.
Now we don't have this listed out, but two things. There's a great book that I've read on marketing, which talks about the toothpaste, and it also talks about that spray that get the Febreze. So Febreze actually is a
Oh,
chemical
yes.
reaction that gets rid of odor, and it gets rid of it. But they had a really hard time selling it based
I
on that
know.
because people couldn't smell the odor.
And
But once they do the commercial where they, after the woman cleans, she spritzes, and and they make it into a routine, right?
but
Like this.
here's the
Yeah.
other thing about that. Do you know that they actually changed their formulation because they couldn't sell the no smell smell? Because I loved that no smell smell. I know this for a fact.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved that I was spraying and refreshing my space without adding perfumes. I loved it. And they
Yeah.
dropped that. They dropped that product and they only sell the ones that are scented now.
Yeah.
And it
I
drives me crazy.
Yeah, I didn't get to say Greg's comment, which was his customers scrambled back to a younger audience. Yeah, I think radio definitely tries to stay in an age bracket, and then you
Yeah.
end up out of it. Because if you do grow old with your audience, you're all dead eventually. you know, in the
Well,
end.
that's interesting. That's interesting that you say that because what I understand is Le Chateau is growing with its audience. So we'll see if they get into elderware.
Interesting. Yeah, well, look, the Bay didn't make it, right? I mean, we just shared something in the Facebook group about, Rena shared it to me in a messenger, and I shared it to the group about Yellow Pages. And it's funny. I think it's funny if you're a Gen X or older, or
Well,
yeah,
let's tell people where that group is because not everybody's probably
ah,
viewing us. We are in the Facebook group called Business Marketing Mixer. So you can find us there. That's usually where we put all the links. I
hang
hope
out.
Jelly puts it on all of my channels, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to check.
The other thing I want to touch on. We're so out of time, but I wanted to touch on Sydney
We have
Sweeney.
1 minute. Yeah, we have
Yeah,
1 or 2 minutes.
Sydney
Yeah.
Sweeney and what's gone on in the marketing world, because that was a big deal recently. Um, and how did you feel about that? It was, I mean, I didn't know who she was before the whole shenanigans of Eagle
Yeah.
Eagle
Well,
Apparel, or
American Eagle,
thank you.
American Eagle. Yeah, don't get those two mixed up. We want to put the problem where the problem lies.
Right?
Um, yeah. So that was super interesting. Again, that's keying into politics, into the context of politics, which really that's what made it blow up because the politics are so divisive right now, and so anything that's going to be keying into that is going to be super problematic. But I
Yeah.
don't know if I don't know if you remembered that that actually was a nod back to a 1980s jean commercial with Brooke Shields. Do you remember that one?
No. That brings us
Yeah.
into jingles, though, going back to the 80s. Ha.
Oh, I think we should have a whole other topic for jingles. I really do.
Jingles? Well,
Yes.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really funny. I do follow a Gen Xer on TikTok, and he'll start part of the ad or part of the jingle, and you'll hear yourself Kit Kat break, or like you're just singing along with the jingle because you know
Right.
it so well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it would be super fun to put the Brooke Shields version. That also got backlash at the time because she was actually very very young, and it was a highly, again,
Mm,
sexualized imagery with children, and at a time where, she was young.
mhm.
So I think that I mean, the thing is that if you have it keys into, again, certain people's values. So
Yeah.
if you
So
if
whereas I think that's important. Like,
Mhm.
people want to work with people like them. The birds of a feather flock together versus, if you don't get along with someone or you have different views, like Phelan and I, we generally don't share our views about lots of things. And I know lots of people don't.
Now,
Oh,
I used to like I used to think about that. I used to think like that, but I don't think like that so much anymore. I do agree that marketing is organized according to values and groups and exclusion and inclusion, exclusivity, and all of those things.
yeah.
So I definitely agree with you there. In real life, I'm not so sure, but
I think everybody's
I think
allowed to do what they choose to do for their own marketing and brand. Like if you want to share everything, for sure. On certain channels, I do. I share personal things. On other channels, I share more marketing things, right? So,
so. Yeah, so I think you can definitely do it. I think you have to be mindful, and you have to sort of stick to your branding, and then you organize what sliver of that brand you're going to segment onto each social, because I certainly don't share the same stuff on Facebook that I do on LinkedIn,
hmm
and that type of thing. I think that's really important. But what I really wanted to really highlight in that sort of context piece is that if you are a marketer or you have a small business and you want to key into things like political events or campaigns that exist in the world, or those types of things, I would recommend being incredibly ginger about it at first. Really understand what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're trying to do, and if you think that's going to help you move the needle, because those kinds of blowbacks can really destroy a company, and it can cause small businesses in particular that don't have the lawyer teams, the PR crisis management teams, the all of that sort of stuff. They can't get stuff taken down off of Google. If you don't have the resources to do that, then I don't recommend keying into that too heavily, because it could be problematic. We had that one restaurant in Vancouver that actually closed because they managed their complaints online very poorly. They did it purposefully. They were antagonistic incredibly purposefully.
interesting.
You certainly can't do that by mistake, but it did result in the demise of their business, and they closed their establishment completely.
Yeah,
Completely.
interesting.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
Greg and I have a past client we share, and it's a bike shop, and it gets 5-star reviews and 1-star reviews, and it is the best. Like to read them,
Yeah.
because you can tell the mood of the owner. Uh, so by the
Right.
reviews. But that being said, we are out of time. I
Yeah.
always want to say not out of touch. Look at us talking about all the cool stuff. But next week we are talking about the psychology behind marketing tactics, which
And who is it?
it's Phelan and I,
Oh,
and
great.
November 13th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, in the Business Marketing Mixer group or on our channels across the web. But it's going to be a great topic, so we hope to see you there. And Rena, it was a really good conversation today.
I think so. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you again.
Yeah,
See you soon.
bye.